In terms of finances, what type of physician are you? Let's discuss this topic on this episode of BootstrapMD. Hey guys, Dr. Mike Woodman here with BootstrapMD. Over the last year, I've been going to a lot of different conferences, not only medical conferences, but I go to a lot of conferences dealing with business, specifically entrepreneurs. And there are a couple of speakers that kind of resonated with me in terms of entrepreneurs that I can really apply to physicians, whether or not you own your own business or not. A couple of speakers, one is named Alex Sharfin, and the other name is Ryan Stewman. And Ryan actually admitted he got this from Alex. Now, both of these guys are tremendous. They're multimillionaires. They have lots of different businesses. And what they've put together is kind of like a framework that, as an entrepreneur, you need to know what position you're in to give you some clarity on why you're kind of running around and running a business. Now, Alex Sharfin calls this a personality framework. If you're familiar with the Myers-Briggs, when you're looking at different personalities and determining, for example, if you're a an introvert or an extrovert, and whether or not what type of positions or occupations you should be best geared for, those types of personality tests can actually be applied to entrepreneurs. Now, what I'm doing here today is I'm not trying to take credit for any of their work that they've done already, but apply it to healthcare professionals, apply it to physicians. And I deal with a lot of doctors on a regular basis. I counsel them. They consult with me, and what it comes down to is determining the type of position you're on right now as a physician, where you are, whether you've just graduated from medical school or you're a few years from retirement. It doesn't really matter. Um, what's going on right now, guys? Of course, a lot of burnout in the medical community. And oftentimes, and I'm saying that it's always a part, but finances does play a role in it. So I want to talk about the level that you're at today, and hopefully it'll give you some clarity so you can do things about it, so you can help get out of, improve your status in terms of finances. Now, what am I talking about here? So most people think that when they're talking about a physician's finances, it has to be dependent on their specialty. It has to be someone who makes a lot of money, right? A neurosurgeon, orthopedic surgeon, an ophthalmologist, right? They're probably not going to have money issues. Well, that's not often the case. So let's first go over these four positions, four levels where you're at right now, and determining where you're at could give you some clarity moving forward. So let's talk about the first one. So let's talk about the first level. First level is the physician as the employee or independent contractor. Of course, this is the biggest group where most physicians are. Most physicians are working for a hospital or some type of large medical group. Their income is dependent oftentimes on how many patients they see. If they want to get a raise, they have to see more patients. As a family practice doctor, I know this all too well. When I first got started in my career as a doctor, I signed up with a mid-sized family practice private care group. I wasn't seeing enough patients. They said for me to see more patients, I needed to work in the urgent care so that I could get more patients coming in from the urgent care. Um, See, and my income was dependent on how many patients I see. I've talked about this in the past. If you're substituting time for money, that's the level where you don't want to be at. It doesn't matter to me if you're a primary care doctor or if you're a specialist. I have colleagues who make a lot of money as an orthopedic surgeons or neurosurgeons, but if they're not doing enough surgeries, they're not making enough money. Um, and what happens is the more income that they do, oftentimes their lifestyle kind of increases as well, and it's just ripe for burnout. So it's not much different. And again, this is another topic I talked about. It's not much different than a McDonald's worker. It's an hourly rate. You want to make more money. You want to see more patients. If you're, I think one of the biggest, you know, crocs out there is this productivity, right? You need to be more productive. You have to see more patients. So, that's why in my group, I was seeing patients every 8 minutes. I go, this is not a way to, I can't sustain this. This is not viable there. Something is going to happen. And if you are where you're at, where your income is dependent on how often you work, you want to get out of that level. Eventually you're going to hit a ceiling. There's only so much that you're going to be able to do, right? We only have 40 hours out of the week, or 24 hours out of the day. Most of us work a 40-hour work week, which is full time, but add that with EMR, and doing charting and talking with insurance folks. Eventually, what's going to happen is you're going to get resentment and what you're doing, and I see that all the time. Now, I know what's really big right now is FIRE, right? Becoming financially independent. And that's great. Guys like the White Coat Investor, Physician on Fire, that's awesome. But kind of underlying that physician on fire stuff is that you're only working for a certain amount of time, with inherently that you don't like what you're doing, and that you want to end whatever you're doing so that your goal is to accumulate enough money so you don't have to work on that position that you don't like. I don't think I can retire. I retired a few times. I retired from clinical medicine in 2004. I started a multi-million dollar software company. I sold that. My next adventure was starting up my own clinics. But, you know, of course, you're going to have, little things that happen, but I enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy going into the office. I enjoy the work that I'm doing. That's because I own my own businesses. If I don't like my own boss, I'm in trouble because I'm the boss of what I do. So that's the thing that you need to think about a lot for those who are just working for somebody else. Now, you could be an independent contractor. I think that's a little bit better in terms of it gives you some leverage. So you're working in locums, right? You're getting more flexibility. You can determine the amount of hours. That's awesome. That's a great way that you can have more time that um, you can kind of carve out. But at the end, you're still an hourly worker, right? You're still you've got to get a pay raise, you need to increase the amount of uh, things that you can do to make more money for the hospital or clinic or whatever you're working with. And here's another thing with locums that, to think about. Every time that you are seeing patients, every hour that you're seeing patients, that locums company is making that same amount of money. So I think for you to start thinking about finances, again, the majority of doctors are in this category. You need to start thinking about different ways that you can bring different streams of income. Okay, the next one is the physician as business owner. So the physician owning their own private practice, they may be a solo practitioner. Um, so that's usually the other step. We know that private practice, the percentage keeps going down. There's less doctors that are owning their own practice for different reasons, right? Um, I think the biggest one is, as doctors, I don't know how much you got, but I got zero education in terms of business, in terms of running a business. The only way that I know how is basically that school of hard knocks. Learning about business, having people on payroll. You're going to learn how to run a business really quick. A book that you kind of changed my life is The E Myth. And the idea is that you need to work on your business rather than working in your business. And this is where I see a lot of doctors get in trouble. Um, let's face it, doctors, we tend to be control freaks. We tend to think we know it all. And what happens is that we try to have too many hats. And the problem is that we often don't ask for help. When I started my own private practice, even though I had, my business education in terms of running a software company, I spent 2 years doing things the wrong way. I wasn't able to look for help, look for mentors out there. It wasn't until I eventually found out and sought professionals who own their own practices, uh, people who ran healthcare franchises, that really kind of figured it out. Is like, I'm not so smart enough that I can figure it out all by myself. I sought out for these folks. I paid them to them to teach me, and it can be very difficult to run your own practice if you're seeing all the patients, if you're managing your team, your staff, if you're paying the rent, paying all the bills that need to get there, that you're reaching and contacting all of the vendors, you're answering your bad reviews on Yelp. Um, you can't do everything, and the important part of being the business owner is I don't think you can work full time and run a business. You have to be able to delegate. You have to be able to have the trust that others can do the job for you. My business wouldn't run if I didn't have an excellent office manager and an excellent staff that we train these folks. So we have people who hire and we have people who fire. You need to have standard operating procedures. You need to create videos in terms of like when somebody joins up, they can just watch this video. Here's what we need you as a medical assistant. Here's what you need to do to when a patient comes in. Here's what to ask. All those types of different things. If you're trying to do everything on your own, it's you're doomed for failure because you can't do it all. And I know it can be scary when you're starting your business. You want to not spend a lot of money. I think the best way that you could do it is to find other people who've already done this. They've already understand how it works. You're not trying to reinvent the wheel, and you have to be able to give control. Again, for doctors, that's a lot to do. So that's the second level, the physician as the business owner, but understanding that you can't run everything. Here's the third level, physician as CEO. So we started with the employee, we're moving up higher to the practice owner, now as the CEO. Now, you probably heard that I wasn't very positive if you were in the first two levels. Um, you can definitely, you know, you can definitely talk about investing and have other ways that you could be bringing in income. That's awesome. But I feel that the best two levels in terms of your financial stability and success is these next two that I'm talking about. First, let's talk about the CEO. This is, of course, where you're in charge. You're not bound by an hourly work. You are not bound by all of the patients, all of the patients that you're seeing. You know, why do CEOs, like tech companies and pharmaceutical companies, why are they in the same level as pro athletes? Because their job is marketing the business. Their job is having the vision of the business. You might be the face of that. So, as someone who, I have my own clinic, I help run a whole bunch of different clinics. My income isn't dependent on how many patients are being seen in a particular day by just one provider, right? Now, they don't see any patients, of course, it's going to be dependent on it. So my job is kind of running everything overhead, making sure the managers are, you know, running the businesses, they're running the practice there, and working with the vendors and getting that great rates with the vendors. Those are all things that I can help oversee. Now, I want to give a clarification on the CEO. You might think that a physician who owns three practices is considered a CEO. Well, as someone who I keep debating on this, whether I should not open a second type of clinic or another type of clinic where um, usually when a second clinic opens up to get started, I have to be the one actually seeing the patients. Not necessarily all the time, but usually, to go into an area, I want to make sure that that's established. And I see too many doctors who maybe they have three, four, five different clinics all around, let's say, a big metropolitan area, and they're just basically seeing patients on one Monday, going to another place on Tuesday, another patient on Wednesday. And when they're not there, that clinic isn't making any income. I don't consider that to be CEO because you're doing the same thing. You're basically working an hourly rate, working your income is dependent on patients. And again, if you're just going to a one place on Monday and driving 10 miles to another place and 20 miles to another place on another day, you're basically just adding your commute and you're not increasing the amount of finances. The way that you can do it is you're going to be having to hire another doctor or a mid-level provider or someone who's actually going to be there at their clinic. They're seeing their own patients. It's not dependent on you going to each one because all you're basically doing is you're just increasing your commute for the day. So this is what you want to start thinking about. And I think most physicians, they need to start thinking about a CEO and becoming a CEO where you're supervising everything there. And again, this is not going to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. What it takes is actually, taking a risk. Again, as doctors, we don't like risk. We're risk averse, right? But the way that I see the problems that are going on in medicine is too many doctors are, they're basically, we're like a trained monkey sometimes. We're just like, okay, go do that, and then the hospitals are saying you see these many patients, you're not seeing enough patients, and they need to start thinking about where are they at. I'll even go on the limb. I think most physicians should only work a maximum of seeing patients for about 10 or 20 years at most. I think what happens is, especially some of our specialty, they feel that only they can provide that specific surgery, right? Or that they have the expertise to do it. Um, I think that's naive to think about because you can't be everywhere. You're not the only person who can do that job. You can get where you can actually work on having that surgery, let's say for 10 or 20 years, and then your next your next part of your physician life should be based on if you feel that it's so specific and special that only you can do it. I think again you are being naive, and I think you're actually being selfish. You need to start educating others. You get paid for that education of teaching them that surgery, and now you're developing your kind of empire. I see this so many times right now with doctors. I know a doctor who does a specialized procedure. Um, for example, in hair restoration, right? And he has his own training to do that. And then he has other doctors who then he has trained them, and then he gets a percentage of this specific procedure that he developed. That's where you go from being an employee, where you're taking your specialized knowledge, and now we're talking about being a CEO, or what I'm going to talk about right next is really the ultimate level that you need to be at. Physician as investor. This is really the pinnacle in terms of financial success. I believe you need to be as a physician. This is where you're owning multiple companies. Your income is not dependent on the day to day. It's not dependent on how many patients that you're seeing. It's based upon you are getting literally 20, 30 sources of income on there. You have a conglomerate. This is difference between rich versus wealthy. You know, um, the famous line is that when Shaq was asked, he gets paid a lot of Shaquille O'Neal gets paid a lot of money as a basketball player. He says, "I'm rich, but the owner of the team, Oprah is wealthy. The one who is the owner, who's got, he owns the different basketball teams or different teams. They're the ones who's rich. You're talking about, the Trumps of the world, the Richard Bransons, the Oprahs. That is a whole different level. I got firsthand experience with that when I was working with a company that dealt with massage envy. I've talked about in the past, and was that there's people who are wealthy, and they work for what they do is they don't own like massage envy. If you don't know, it's a massage franchise, and it's not like one person owns one franchise. They own like 21 of these franchises, and they might own like 12 Dunkin' Donuts, and their own 18 Papa John restaurants on in here, all generating income. And all these folks cared about was that they have money that they've invested. They put it into some type of service-based service-based business, whether it be massages or food or whatever. And at the end, they make more money, whatever they've put in. And again, they're not commuting, they're not working, they are investing, and that's where you're using your money and you're leveraging your money, and you are looking at from the 30,000 feet, and that really is, the next level of a physician. You are not dependent on the day to day. You're not dependent on the salary. Now, for myself, I wish I could say that I'm on that number four position. That's what I aspire to. I'm definitely number three with the aspirations to go to number four. And there's still times when I'm in that number two position, as someone who owns my own practice. I still work, I still see patients, but my income isn't dependent on the patient that I see. I do it because I like it. Um, you know, Currently at the time of this, I work. Um, I might have another podcast on it. I see patients from 8 to 2 p.m. on a Thursday and Friday, and then the rest is we're open Monday through Saturday. Is I'm overseeing that. So we've got providers that we oversee, and it runs by itself with little no intervention. Um, I have it where my patients aren't asking for me. I don't choose to be the face of my practice, but I want my providers to be the face of the practice. So those are things that you need to, if you don't like the financial position you're in, you need to start thinking about what level am I at right now? What do I need to do? What I need to accomplish to get me to that next level? And I get it. It can be pretty scary. Running a business can be scary. Like I said, we've got payroll, and my income is, or payroll is dependent on how well I market and make our businesses become successful. People think that to make more money, you need to put in more money, and that's certainly true. But you also need to understand that you need to have systems in place to make these things happen. It just doesn't come on by itself. So hopefully, you guys gives you some insight to this. I know it sounds pretty um, intuitive for the most part, but I see this so much often. And too many doctors are in that level one position and they get stuck and they don't know how to get out. So um, I look forward to talking with you more about this. Feel free. I'd like to know what you think. Feel free to contact me, and I look forward to hearing about what I can do or what we can talk about to get you to that next level. All right, guys, just want a quick reminder to you, if you like and want to learn more about building residual streams of income, if you want to connect with other physicians who want to build 6 and 7 figures annually with their own business, you need to come to BootcampMD. It's coming on January 26th, January 27th in San Diego. I'm right in the middle of kind of finalizing my speaker list. I'll be showing you my strategies of how I was able to go from a busy primary care physician, starting up my own business from a laptop, and then eventually developing a multi-million dollar software practice with strategies that I want to share with you at that event. So if you're interested, you can't do this alone. You need to connect with others. I invite you to come to my Bootcamp MD coming up again in January of 2019. There should be a link around here so you can go ahead and register. Have a good one, guys, and I'll talk to you on the inside.